Yeah, while we're on this topic, I know you're a pretty big fan of other sports as well.
Mm.
And you just mentioned that the influence of field hockey on analytics and football. You live in Denver, which is a pretty big sports town, I would say. They've got the football team that you work for.
Yeah.
I mean, they have the defending world champions in the NBA. They beat the shit out of the Lakers couple days ago. I'm not even gonna lie to you. The Lakers are winning now though.
I wouldn't say beat the shit out of them.
Well, bro, like they led the whole game, bro. Like they led the whole game. God, man, why did I even bring that up? But anyway, and then there's the Broncos, and then there's the Rockies. So like, and I know you're a big basketball fan, right?
Avs won the championship year and a half ago. So.
Yeah, and what I wanted to ask you was as an analyst, though. I mean, I know you go out to basketball games sometimes. I know you go watching all these other sports, whenever you can. But what are some takeaways you get from other sports? Like that's what, because like a lot of analysts do tell me like, oh, like there are times when I watch other sports and I learn things. Like, what are some specific things that you learn? Like, let's say you watch a basketball game or something. How do you kind of like how do you transfer that over to your work? And
what's really funny is like basketball, specifically.
Yeah.
Pick and roll, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that could be like the way that they do stuff in basketball can help immensely in our set pieces. So corner kicks, whatnot. So free kicks, especially when you're running into, you have two players that's offside, right? So those people are offside, so you can actually stay and actually, be in the way of the guys running in, so they lose a marker. So those kind of things you can always learn from different sports because other sports have their specialties at what they do, and it's always interesting. And I told you before, I went on a study trip to All Blacks.
Yeah,
and it's a completely different game because their game is not revolved around 60 around the ball,
right?
Whereas it's against a line that's coming across each other, just like American football. But there are little things that you learn from it, what they do, because in that game they try to take over the territory instead of possession, and like you kind of see, like you can think outside.
It gives you ideas, right?
Yeah, but like you also learn the cultural side of the game as well. Like rugby people are very, very smart. Believe it or not, there's more rugby players that actually completes a university degree than like a football player would. Footballers in soccer. So they have extremely smart people working, and the culture that they put on those players is completely different to how we do it in football. So like those kind of nuances that you learn just by watching, and you go, how can we adapt that into our culture or the way we coach, or So I think you can always learn something from a different sport.
Yeah, and the reason why I even bring this up is because Young Hoon here, he's had like something of a lecture / seminar on how like certain concepts of basketball can be applied to football. Yeah, I'm gonna ask Young Hoon, like, you just heard Jase talk about how he takes things from other sports. Like, what are some takeaways for you? Like, I mean, I know we talked about this before a little bit, but what are some takeaways for you when you watch other sports? Like, what do you take away, like, for example, from basketball game? What are some things that Jase just mentioned the pick and roll in basketball? What are some of the biggest lessons that you got from basketball or maybe other sports as well?
Yeah, as you said, I hosted a seminar in Korea, and the topic was how to develop your side attack, and I used many references from NBA, especially last year, the Sacramento Kings of last year, and in personal case James Harden, because now in football, in modern football, especially in top level, in penetration pace, there are so many teams has those low blocks in close to their goals. So you basically you don't have big spaces to use to penetrate. So what you have to do is you have to make some little bit of time and little bit of space to progress or to attack the penalty box of the opponent. So I think the perspective of basketball can be very useful and can be very interesting, because Jase told us about the pick and roll concept to use it in set pieces. But I'd like to say I want to focus on pick and pop a little bit more, because to develop the side attack, because in a flank, if you have the ball, you are in the 180 degrees of spaces, because at the back you have the sideline. So you don't have to be worried about that. You can focus on your opponent that wants to mark you. And the cases, you can fix that defense player and the other one when they want to double team you. And last year, especially last year in Champions League, I saw so many cases in Manchester City's game when Jack Grealish or Bernardo Silva, they had the ball, the opponent want to make double team to stop them. But what was interesting was at that moment what they can do. I mean, they means Bernardo Silva and Jack Grealish to solve those kind of situations. Normally, people say, we have to see, for example, Damian Lillard in NBA. Maybe first years, many team wants to double team Damian Lillard, but after 3 or 4 years, because of the 3-point, many teams wants to make double team when Lillard has the ball. But Lillard, many people said, but Lillard, he doesn't know how to deal double team, because he lose the ball so many times. He made so many turnovers, but after 2 or 3 years now, he can deal those situations, because maybe some people say Lillard has that personal capacity, individual capacity to solve this, but I think it's a little bit. In my opinion, it's not like that, because the team knows how to deal those situations. Lillard needs some options to solve that situation, and now team knows how to solve this. So I think 2 against 2, 2-on-2 is the key, because when you have the ball, when you're double teamed, you need that option, especially in football, between those 2 players. If you are double teamed, they gonna be 2 players, and between the lines, you need that option at the back of those 2 players. And those kind of things, I learned a lot, because Mikel Arteta, the head coach of Arsenal, these days, he mentioned so many times. I have a chat with other coaches of other sports, and
right.
we made the interchanges of opinions about that. I think when I watch Arsenal's games, I've seen so many kind of things from other sports, especially in basketball.
Yeah, no, because I also heard that Pep Guardiola is a big NBA fan as well. He talks a lot about Kawhi Leonard. I think I read somewhere that Kawhi Leonard is one of his favorite players or something like that. And Eric Spoelstra, who I have like tremendous amount of respect for, head coach of Miami Heat. I heard he also watches a lot of European football too. And he's a really interesting guy. I heard he makes trip. He used to make trips to Seattle to watch the Seattle Seahawks, to watch Pete Carroll's teams play, and apparently he took lessons from that as well, which is really, really interesting. Anyway, basketball, dude, I'm starting to lose a lot of interest in basketball though, man. Because if the Lakers don't stay competitive in basketball, I lose all my interest. That's just the way I am, man. You guys are coaches, but I'm not. I'm a fan of basketball. So hey, man, that's just the way I am, bro. And
Jesse Marsh recommend what was that documentary with Kobe?
What was the name of it?
I forgot the name.
Amazon.
The one that where he goes to the Olympics.
Right. I know what you're talking about. I just forgot the name of it, but I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
I completely forgot the name of it right now.
Yeah.
But Jesse Marsh, when he was at Leeds, he was like, all of you guys go home and watch this documentary.
Yeah. Yeah, and
That's an American coach implementing NBA to Premier League players.
yeah, I mean, like, surprisingly though, because you would think like the dimension of the playing field is completely different, the number of the players is completely different. You play with your hand. Football, you play with your feet, obviously, but you can actually draw a lot of similarities when you watch these games. Yeah, I mean, I know I'm just joking with like all the Lakers analogy, but yeah.
Yeah. More for the mental side of the game, I think.
Right.
Oh.
And so, like, the next question I have for you, Jace, is how does your day to day, like, this is like one of my biggest questions for you though, because in football, I mean, because we talked about other sports like basketball or whatever, very similar jobs when it comes to coaching these sports, I feel like, but in football it's slightly different because national team is such a big part of football still that, you know, being in the coaching staff for a national team and being in the staff of a club team, I would imagine it's two completely different dynamics when it comes to your day-to-day work.
Yeah.
So how does your day-to-day differ as the first team analyst as a head of analysis of a club side rather than a national team? Because I'd assume that, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that club football is far more demanding than the national team. But you've experienced both, so can you explain that for us a little bit?
Like, yeah, I would say club football is much more demanding because just the number of fixtures and and the turnaround to get things right. It does take a toll on you.
Yeah.
And in MLS, obviously, we have so much more travel.
Yeah.
And even that has an effect on you somewhat. But international football also, like, you do have a really quick turnaround. So, like, say if you're in a competition, most international football games are like you're in competition. You know, like you go to a World Cup, World Cup qualifier, you know, European Cups, and obviously our team, New Zealand, didn't have that many games. I mean, we wish we did, but it's hard to come by. That's another story. But in the international setup, like, you're focusing that energy on like monitoring players, who makes the cut, like who's this new player, like, especially for us, like we're always looking for someone that has a, you know, New Zealand nationality that can actually come and play for us, you know. So when Anthony was in charge, he actually he found a lot of talent that actually could be playing for New Zealand. So some player in Greece that his mum's like a Kiwi. So somehow we find that, and he's already playing at the Premier Division in Greece. So he's a decent level player, and then we recruit him to come to one of our windows, and you know, that's how you find those players. And like Winston Reed was actually like playing in the Danish league when he got recruited from All Whites.
How do you find players like that from a federation standpoint? Well, like, how does that even work?
Winston's a bit different because Winston grew up in New Zealand, and then he went to Denmark. And then like he got picked up again, but I'm sure there's some connections that told them like, oh, he used to be at like this high school in New Zealand, and then he went abroad. So like, and now he's playing professionally, so he must be a Kiwi. He's a New Zealander, so we have to get him. You know, like, and there are players like I'll tell you a funny story. We actually almost recruited Ben Chilwell for the under-20s.
Ben Chilwell. Ben Chilwell of Chelsea.
Yeah. So the funny story is, don't quote me on this, but I think his mum is New Zealander as well.
Oh.
He's like an Englishman because like he came up the ranks of the Leicester youth. And somehow somebody found out. Oh no,
Wow.
Somebody. Chris Wood at the time playing for Leicester, and then he saw a 16 or 17-year-old Ben Chilwell training in the under-18s, and he found out he was a half Kiwi, so he's a half and then told our one of our head guys in the New Zealand football, There's this really, really exciting kid.
Mhm.
We have to bring him in. Like he's gonna help us.
Yeah.
At least for the under-20 World Cup that's coming on, and you can always play for a under-20. He wasn't playing for the under-20s England team at the time.
Yeah.
So that's where the option opens up for him, to play at the New Zealand under-20 team, and then he can decide, oh no, I'm good enough to play for England.
Yeah.
Then he can play for England.
Yeah.
But that chance came, and apparently, and don't quote me on this as well. One of the guys higher up that was in charge said, well, he has to come and trial and prove himself.
Yeah.
His dad pretty much just said, "No, go fuck yourself." So that's how we almost got him. Aaron was absolutely gutted.
That's like really, I mean, but like,
and now he's playing for Chelsea. He's like, England's.
But wouldn't that have been interesting though? Ben Chilwell playing for, because I feel like you told me this before off the record.
I think I could have.
I feel like I heard this before, but like I'm just trying to refresh my memory a little bit. But I mean, at the same time though, would things have been different for him if he started to play for New Zealand? You think?
I think it's much better he didn't come and play for us. Like hindsight, the level that he's playing at, because he became England's under-20 captain.
Yeah, right. You're right.
Captain for the England's under-20 team. So, hey, kudos to his dad. Believing in his son's abilities and just going along with it,
Yeah. Dude, so, Jase, you're an analyst. I mean, one of your jobs, I don't know if I can say this is your job, but I guess one of the things that you have to do is to watch a lot of football. Is there anything that you noticed about MLS since you've been here, so I guess like the last 5 years or so, that sets this league apart from other leagues around the world?
Yeah, I actually do. There's two ways of looking at it. Obviously, the salary cap.
Yeah.
Because of the salary cap, you have, like most teams, invest most of their money on a good attacking players. So you would say, on average, 70 to 80% of the salary cap goes to exciting forwards, and exciting midfield players who joins attacks.
Yeah,
because attacking players cost more money, and that's the general rule of football. Apart from centre backs nowadays, which is becoming harder, to actually find. But I think that creates a gap of very exciting attackers to again, like a slightly lower level of defenders because of the salaries that you have to spend on defenders.
Yeah.
And that creates a lot more exciting moments and also induces a lot more transitional game. So, and obviously the league itself is very athletic. A lot of like American as athletes, from college level, that we recruit from. Like we just have so many athletic players that all of these things make us, I think, the most transitional league there, apart from Premier League, which is the best, highest quality, highest, paced league in the world. But like when it comes to the transition side of the game, I don't even think like the German league's more exciting in terms of athleticism. Like they obviously have such a high talent to players.
Right.
But in terms of athleticism,
athletic ability, right?
I don't think we're second to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because Americans, the way they develop like athletes, because the word athlete, I almost feel like it's pretty exclusive to Americans because like when we assess or like evaluate players in like American football, like soccer, I guess American soccer, a lot of what people say is he an athlete? Yeah, he's a football player. Is he an athlete? Like that's the question, right? You don't really hear people from other countries saying like pointing at a footballer and saying, is he an athlete? Like the standard, I feel like, is almost completely different because for Americans, there's the footballer and then there's the athlete. There's the basketball player and there's the athlete. Like they look at it almost differently. Like you could be a footballer, but that doesn't make you a good athlete.
Right.
Like that's almost like the way they look at it.
And rightly so, because like most of the like basketball players, like they could probably play in American football. You know what I mean? Like
Probably, yeah,
or vice versa.
yeah,
Because they're so athletic, you know. Whereas I don't think you can just say a normal top tier soccer player, like not like the Premier League.
Yeah.
I'm saying like somebody that's played for Barca's La Masia, for example, you throw them into an American football team to compete at an athletic level. You know, I can't see that happening.
Right.
Because football is a funny game where if your ability on the ball is so good, it can sort of, you can not be as athletic. So it's like you can sort of maneuver not being athletic, but if you're that good with the ball, like they can't touch you, you know? So yeah, it's a funny game, I think. But in America, we're just full of athletes, and because of the salary caps, we have to go for these athletes too, because like we can't afford these top tier football level ability players like off the board. You can't get 25 of these players, so you have to pick and choose, and you end up with some, you know, less football ability but much more athletic, and that kind of brings up the whole athletic level of the game. And that's why you see a lot of European players that used to play in top league, like Higuain, for example, is a
Gonzalo Higuain,
Gonzalo Higuain, when he went to, like, he thought he was gonna smoke cigars, like when he was like into Miami, but he found it really tough because the pace of the game is like, it's not bad. The level of the game is obviously below what he's had to play against in Serie A, in Chelsea and whatnot. But when it comes to running, like if people runs at you, or you have to try and pace the centre back who's much more athletic, like it's gonna be tough, you know, like so yeah, there's two sides of the game, but I think that's something that sets our league apart a little bit, and that's where I believe like even players from K League, they might want to have MLS as the next stepping stone. If they can't look at it easy, because you have to be athletic to come to the league.
No, because I was just about to say, I mean, we talked about Colorado eliminating, you know, LAFC a couple years ago, and there was a Korean player, Kim Moon-han, who played for LAFC that season. I mean, he's a good player, but he found it really difficult here.
I think he had some other issues with the coach.
Sure.
But at the same time, like it is a hard league to adapt. Not just
because I think he really, he was surprised.
And you know, adapting to LA is not the easiest. I think.
I think he was surprised at the level of play here, to be honest. I mean, I'm sure he didn't assume that it was going to be easy for him when he first came here, but I think the quality of football here was actually a lot higher than what he anticipated. I think that was one of the things. But one thing that I also wanted to ask you about MLS is just because the travel is so brutal and within the US, or I mean, I guess sometimes you guys have to travel to Canada too, but how much of an impact does that have, though? Because a lot of players have told me that it's rough. But I did speak with Sang Bin at Minnesota a couple weeks ago, and what he told me is because you guys are now flying, you guys don't have to fly commercial anymore. It's gotten better. But like from your perspective, how is it?
I think it takes a toll because like because our fixtures are much more condensed now than before. Because of the League Cup. We have many more midweek games, and doing that kind of
noticed
travel,
that too.
Like say there was a few weeks where we had 3 games in 7 days, right? For example, our last 7 games out of the 8, I think there was a phase where we played 7 games in 22 days.
Jeez.
Which is like a championship level.
And then you take travel into account, and it just becomes crazy.
In England, at least, you just ride the train. It's like a 1 hour, 1.5 hour train ride or a flight, right? It's like 3 hours minimum. Like
at least.
2 hours is the absolute minimum. Normally you travel around 3 hours. Like if we go to the East Coast, like 3 to 4 hours. So there are times where we decide to even travel the day of the game. So after the game, and we come back, and then we arrive.
Jeez, man.
We arrive at like 4 a.m. So like for me, that's a killer. Like I don't love it, but it also gives you a chance to be with your family for a whole day by doing that. So those kind of factors go into it.
Yeah.
So some teams decide a certain way, some other teams decide a different way. But at the end of the day, it does take a toll because if you're on, say, 6 flights in 7 days,
and then if you're in a situation,
because you're not really going to have 3 away games in 7 days. But I'm saying worst case scenario, that can happen.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So 4 to 6 flights in 7 days would be a very demanding in any like working space.
Right. And then if you take into account if you're a national team player and you have to travel every month to the national team, I mean, like if you play for Korea or if you play in Europe too, like the amount of travel you have to do, it's like it's more traveling than football, honestly.
100%. But I know this very well because I work for New Zealand national team.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Our minimum travel was like 17 hours. Like,
Jesus,
that's
man.
just going one way. You know what I mean? Like we had a game in Northern Ireland. It took us 33 hours, I believe, to get to Northern Ireland.
Was it even a direct flight though?
No.
I'm
It was
assuming
a
it wasn't.
direct flight to Dubai.
Yeah.
And Dubai to London and London to
God.
Northern Ireland. So that was a 33-hour travel, I believe. But like international football, that's brutal. Like, and you have players flying from everywhere. That's why it's very good for, like, say, a Korean national team to play those games in Europe.
Yeah.
It just reduces all the top players' loads, and it's also in the head as well. Like, if you just travel 15 hours, it's gonna affect you mentally. It'll be like,
sure.
You know, it doesn't matter if you're first class or business class. It's gonna affect you. Like, and the body's like in altitude for 15 hours as well. So you get that, like your blood level goes, oxygen level, adapting to it, and all sorts of, like, I don't know the exact.
Yeah, you mentioned altitude though. Like I forgot to include that in the set of questions that I wanted to ask you. You guys play at high altitude. It's Denver, Mile High City. Mile High City, man. I mean, that's why the Lakers lose there all the time. I'm serious, because you're at sea level out here.
I'm telling you, I have to go up and down stairs here. It's brutal.
Bro, I remember I was there. Like, you can feel it.
Yeah. So
you can feel it as soon as you land. You can.
I live here, so I got used to it. So my oxygen levels used to this.
Yeah.
If I go for a run, it's just so much more harder. You know, like just going up the stairs is, you feel it. So imagine a 90-minute game. So
yeah, I had a beer with you in Denver.
Yeah.
Like, felt like I had about 5, man. 1 or 2 felt like 5.
Exaggerating that a little bit, but yeah, it does make a difference. It does make a difference.
Yeah, it does, man. Like,
when
so
you
like
on the plane, when you drink on the plane, like, it affects you a little bit more.
Yeah. So do you feel like, but if you play there, as you know, when you play your home games there every week or every other week, well, I guess, does that give your team an advantage though?
100%. That's why when Robin, when we were in that West winning season, we had a record of 29 home games unbeaten, I believe, which was like very close to MLS record. We almost got to beating the MLS record, but that's still, like, that shows you if the team's doing well, and there's other things that goes into it, but altitude should give you an advantage somewhat.
So it's almost like, I mean, I guess players, when you actually play there, they get used to it over time. But is there anything that you guys do as a team to get them kind of acclimated to the high altitude situation there? Or is it just because it's your home, like, do they just get used to it over time?
Well, that's why we tried to go to preseason to Mexico. So, which is not quite a mile high, but it's closer.
Right.
So we went to Phoenix, which is about 1/3 the height of Denver. Like, Mexico is a bit higher than that, so like, it just helps you a little bit quicker.
Yeah. Dude, like every time I land in Denver, I get like a light. Like I mean, it's not terrible, but it's like light headache.
Yeah,
Light headache. You know.
affect you.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I think it does affect them mentally as well. They know that you're gonna have.
It's like lightheadedness, you know.
Teams like come and change their whole tactic.
Yeah.
Because they're in altitude.
Yeah.
Like, or they don't play their best players and bring them on in the 60th minute to get the best out of them. You know, like we've seen many different things happen over here. I'm sure.
And let me ask you this: since you've been here, I mean, MLS has changed a lot, bro, over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, it was changing pretty fast, even when you were first here. I feel like, but now, like over the last, I think as little as 3 to as much as 5 years, I think it has changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But from someone like you who has been in MLS for as long as you have, what's been the biggest change since you've gotten here, since you've been here? Looking back at it now in 2023, looking back when you first got here, like what's been the biggest change in MLS?
Quality of players, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of money being pumped in to the teams and the league, for sure. And obviously, I think it's like a cascade of effects. Like you bring in Messi, then obviously you're gonna attract more players. Like just like how Ronaldo did it in Saudi, but obviously Saudi's a bit different because everyone's getting paid like millions of dollars. So yeah, I would say the quality has definitely risen because when I first got here, I didn't think the quality was great, and then it really improved around the COVID time. Like
around like 2020, 2021?
2021 is when I saw a bit of change.
Yeah.
Like every team has like 6, 7, 8 quality players. Like when I'm doing opposition analysis, like there used to be just like one guy that you highlight of that team, like 2 guys. Like when we first come here, like these are the guys that we really have to worry about.
Yeah.
Right now, it will be like we'll be highlighting fullbacks, like how their deliveries affecting the game, how how they can draw an attack, and obviously in transition, like they're very effective as well. Like they didn't really used to highlight that many fullbacks in 2018, but now we're highlighting like centre backs that can change the game.
Yeah.
Like sixers, obviously, that can get involved with the ball, that can penetrate. So like the quality of players has risen like that we highlight so many more players than we used to. That just shows you the whole overall league's qualities going up.
Yeah, I was talking to Sangbin, who plays for Minnesota, and this is a player who hasn't played much in the second half of the season. But what he told me was the defenders that he's facing in MLS, he finds it more difficult than the ones he faced in Switzerland. Which I guess at this point now, it's not even a big surprise anymore.
I think that's with the athleticism, though.
Right.
Because center backs here, like I said before, because we can't afford top center backs that can like play with the ball, you end up going with like at least he's athletic and he can stop you, you know?
Yeah.
And because we have that salary restriction, I think more and more teams has at least one central defender who's an absolute athlete.
Yeah.
And then you have fullbacks that's now they're investing more money into because fullbacks are so important in the modern game.
Yeah.
They have to join the attack. They have to, actually overload midfield, become one of the pivots, etc. Like the smart ones like Zinchenko does for Arsenal. That they can pull a player away because we know that they're good and create space for somebody else, etc.